Borderlands is a franchise filled with many funny, inspiring, and shocking moments, with characters dying, unexpected betrayals, and characters returning after some time of either us believing they were dead or they're just gone for some reason, to us, the player, finding out the connections between characters that have been in the franchise for so long, realizing, hey, that's this person's dad, mother, sister, brother, whatever it may be. There are a number of moments like these, and today we're going to be going over the top 10 shocking moments in Borderlands lore. Now, with 6 games total in the franchise, we're not going to go in sequential order, but with this first one, we're going to start with Borderlands 1, and this is TK Baha's death. Now, TK Baha was one of the first characters the Vault Hunters met in Borderlands 1. Now, with the knowledge of his history with Scar and his miraculous survival during those events, with the loss of his eyesight and his right leg, he almost seemed invincible. But when Scooter mentions he's worried about TK because he hasn't heard from him in a while, it starts to be pretty clear that something has happened to him at this point, but we don't really know. And then lo and behold, seeing TK's body hanging from the ceiling fan from his prosthetic leg in his shack outside Firestone was really a jab in the story and pretty unexpected. Now, I gotta tell you, after this moment, every bandit I killed after that had a little bit more meaning in their deaths. It wasn't just killing mindlessly. Kind of had this mindset, okay, TK, this one's for you, this one's for you, and this one's for you. Those damn bandits, man. Next on our list is going to be Typhon DeLeon. Now, we know so much about this guy, and he kind of was a mystery for quite a while throughout the series, but Typhon is the first Vault Hunter ever in the Borderlands universe. A little after meeting him, it's found out that the Calypso twins, Troy and Tyrene, are his children with very different personalities and morals. Now, after learning about this, we soon learned that Typhon's endeavors to stop the twins from opening the Great Vault was basically his purpose at this point. He comes up with a plan which is ultimately destroyed when Tyrene, his daughter, shows up, grabs Lilith by the neck, and in response, Typhon uses his whip on Tyrene, which sets her sights on him. At this point, he's willing to sacrifice himself like a noble hero he is, setting off a grenade, but Tyrene absorbs it and fires it back at him, ultimately ending his life. Now, the sad thing about this is Typhon, being the twins' father, taught them everything they know about vaults, and in return, they ultimately just killed him and tainted his legacy by using it for evil and control. This was a big turning point. Not only do we realize that the main antagonists in Borderlands 3 were actually the son and daughter of the first Vault Hunter, but also Typhon's backstory is pretty sad to say the least, with his wife dying, him getting trapped on the planet, and then having twins that are pretty much nightmares and turn into one of the most annoying soft antagonists in the Borderlands franchise, and then they ultimately kill him. Next off, and this one is pretty big in my opinion just because this is one of the best antagonists in the Borderlands franchise. By now you know who I'm talking about, and arguably one of the best antagonists in video games history, in my opinion. And this is Handsome Jack's face reveal. Now, throughout Borderlands 2, Handsome Jack's face was always covered by a mask, leaving us all wondering if his name was actually fitting, and he was actually handsome. We don't know that. But it wasn't until the pre-sequel that it was revealed why and what was under this mask. The events of the pre-sequel follows Handsome Jack on his quest for power. Now, this is a bit of a spoiler, but at the end of the pre-sequel, when he opens up the vault, he finds a floating object. Initially disappointed, he reaches out and touches it, which then grants him vision of the Vault of the Warrior. Now, while he's entranced with the knowledge that this object is giving him, Lilith appears and punches the object, destroying it and searing the vault symbol into his face. The iconic Borderlands arch vault symbol is now seared onto Handsome Jack's face. This ultimately scars him for life and sets him on the path for the events of Borderlands 2, and this is really when Handsome Jack kind of changes his mentality and really builds a grudge against the Vault Hunters as well as Lilith as a whole and anyone that accompanies her or aids them. And this is truly when the best antagonist is born at this point. Now, next off, we're going to be talking about Angel. Specifically what happens in Borderlands 2, and ultimately the idea that she betrays us or was betraying us pretty much the whole time to some degree. Now, during the events of Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2, Angel is there, you know, kind of as this holographic figure that guides the Vault Hunters, lets us know where to go, and kind of gives us direction throughout the story. Now, it isn't until the story mission Rising Action in Borderlands 2 that her true intentions come into light. When the Vault Hunters eventually defeat Wilhelm, he drops a power core, which Angel says is so advanced that the shields protecting Sanctuary will never have to be recharged again. With this information, following Angel's advice, the power core is then replaced by the new Hyperion power core. Now, this is where we learn that Angel is working for Handsome Jack. The power core is actually a trap, and with the shields down, Handsome Jack rains absolute havoc and destruction on the city. Now, at this point, it was pretty disappointing. Angel's betrayal was a huge shock, revealing that she had been working with Handsome Jack all along, not just during the events of Borderlands 2, but the entirety of Borderlands 1 as well. When he used uses Angel to trick the original Vault Hunters into opening the vault for himself. Not only at this point do we realize that she was betraying us during the entirety of Borderlands 2 and seeming that she was going to help us, and she ultimately didn't. She was working on Handsome Jack's side. We then come into light and fully come full circle to understand that during Borderlands 1, the whole idea of opening the vault was Angel's idea and actually had meaning behind it in order to help her father, Handsome Jack. Now, next off, we're going to be talking about one of the many bigger deaths in the Borderlands franchise. Now, after taking out Rampage in Borderlands 3, the Vault Hunters stumble upon an argument between Ava and Maya. Maya instructed Ava to stay on the ship, keep her safe, but Ava, being Ava as we know, didn't listen to Maya and followed them to the vault. Now, at this point, Tyreen and Troy show up and Ava chooses to antagonize them. Quickly, these events escalate with Tyreen grabbing Ava, Maya then putting Troy in a headlock, demanding she lets Ava go. Tyreen does as she's told, only for Troy to then grab Maya's arm and begin draining her of her siren powers. With Troy leeching Maya's abilities, she begins to dissolve into nothing, with only a book left in her place. Now, I'm going to be honest, her death was particularly surprising as I did not expect it, but it all happened extremely fast and ended so abruptly with the Vault Hunters just standing there watching. It was extremely hard to believe, even as she was fading away, that Troy would be able to kill Maya so simple with just a touch. It's kind of weird to me, but it's part of the story and whatever. Now, at this point, I gotta be honest, this was probably the moment that really solidified the player base in hating Ava entirely. Ava, you completely suck, and that is enough said. We hate you. We don't want you back. You're probably coming back, but whatever. Now, this next one's gonna be pretty simple and short, but it is kind of a big moment and a shocking moment in Borderlands overall. Now, throughout the Borderlands story, we know and help Tannis, as well as her helping us, the Vault Hunters. She always just seemed like a scientist with the knowledge to help us locate the vaults around the universe. But it wasn't until Borderlands 3 when she got kidnapped by the Calypso twins and brought to Carnivora. They strapped her to a board hanging above the Agonizer 9000, where then us, the Vault Hunters, are sent in to save her. Now, once we completely obliterate the Agonizer 1000, Tannis broke out of her restraints and glided down to the ground using her hidden siren powers that we did not see up until this point. Tannis then revealed that she had become a siren when Angel transferred her abilities to her upon her death. She then says, "You could call it a gift from a guardian angel." She then says, "You can call it a gift from a guardian angel." Now, this is a pretty simple moment, but it is pretty shocking to see. Why didn't you use your abilities before to help us take out the Agonizer 9000? You're laying up there on a board by yourself, hanging out. What the heck are you doing, lady? Next on our list, this is actually a pretty big moment for a lot of us in the player base, just because this character was loved so much, and what we're about to talk about is the death of Scooter. Now, we first met Scooter through the story mission Plan B, where he gives us our first Outrunner. It's the first vehicle we've ever encountered in Borderlands. He gives us our first vehicle. It's amazing. We meet this Scooter guy. He's pretty wild. At this point, we did not know of his sister Ellie, but we grew to love this guy instantly. Now, in Tales of the Borderlands, Scooter makes another return in episodes Atlas Mugged and Escape Plan Bravo. In the former, Fiona and Sasha show up to his new garage where he works alongside Janie Springs. Scooter recognizes them as the winners of the latest bandit race and agrees to repair their vehicle for a hefty sum of cash. When they're unable to play, he suffices with a compromise by asking them to sponsor him, along with Sasha, Reyes. Now, in the later episode, Fiona, along with Sasha, Reyes, Vaughn, and Valerie's goons, seek out Scooter's garage in hopes of getting a ride to Helios. After a brief interrogation by Janie, she agrees to make them a rocket. Now, during the trip, the crew encounters problems, and the ship becomes unable to break Pandora's gravitational pull, ultimately stranding them in the atmosphere. Scooter devises an emergency plan and manages to overload the ship in order to break through. Now, shortly thereafter, he and Fiona must travel outside the ship to detach the rockets. Fiona successfully detaches hers. Well, Scooter, on the other hand, gets his hand stuck inside the stabilizer console. I don't know how you do this, man. You're a mechanic, but you also are semi-dumb. Now, after a few brief attempts to free him, Fiona and Scooter share a heartfelt goodbye as Fiona is forced to detach the rocket. Scooter then rides off the rocket towards Pandora, shouting out his signature phrase, "Catch a ride," as the rocket explodes in space, ultimately killing him, and that was the end of Scooter. Now, in Borderlands 2, we do a memorial jump for him. Ellie sets it up. We do the jump. This next one on our list is pretty simple, but it is one of the bigger moments in Borderlands, as this was the first time we actually saw a vault and opened it. Now, at the ending of Borderlands 1, with everything we've done all leading up to the opening of the vault, the whole plot was centered around the treasures that the vault supposedly held. Knowing the contents of the vault was rightfully the property of the Atlas Corporation, but when it finally opened up and the Destroyer comes crawling crawling out. Suffice to say, it was pretty shocking. Now, not to mention, finally, after defeating the monster, the vault closes and the loot left behind was nothing to write home about, in my opinion. The loot was nothing crazy. It was lackluster at best, in my opinion. But at this point, Angel admits that she knew the contents of the vault the entire time, but chose to hide it from us because she believed we wouldn't help her if we knew what was held inside the vault. Now, the Borderlands 1 ending left everyone stunned at the time because everything led up to this experience of wonders inside the vault, which never existed in the first place, and we never even got to go inside the vault entirely. We basically opened the vault, or Commandant Steely opened the vault, and a monster came out, the destroyer came out, we killed the destroyer, loot popped out, and the vault closed. So even in Borderlands 1, even though we finally, the whole story led up to finally going to the first vault ever, we didn't actually technically go in the vault. So it was a little bit of a disappointment, in my opinion. Not only was the loot not that good, the destroyer, super cool to figure that out and find that there's a monster and that's the monster that's guarding it, but the loot wasn't good. We didn't even go inside. Come on. But I guess that kind of built some more suspense for Borderlands 2. So now the next one on our list is still a little bit unknown to us, and we kind of have an idea of what's going to happen come Borderlands 4. At least I have my own opinions, and you may too. I would love to hear what you guys think down in the comments below, but this is Lilith's disappearance. I don't even want to call it a death because I don't ultimately think that she's gone and dead. I think she just technically disappeared. Where is she? Where are we going to find her? Where are we going to see her? We don't know. We may not see her. I don't know, but I don't think she's officially dead. Lilith's disappearance at the end of Borderlands 3 when we finally defeat Tyreen. The Great Vault doesn't close, which puts Pandora at a risk, and there doesn't seem any way to close the vault at all unless we remove the moon from the sky. Move the moon from the sky upon, at least this is what Lilith is saying. Now, upon Lilith sacrificing herself to save Pandora and flies towards Elpis, exploding into a fiery mess before the symbol of the Firehawk appears in the sky, and Lilith wasn't seen again. Her disappearance poses a question. Is she really dead? Or is she just off somewhere and I don't even know? We don't know. But Lilith's disappearance was something major that happened at the end of the game, and it was pretty questionable on what actually is going to occur and where she's going to be. But it's a simple moment, and it happened pretty fast, but pretty interesting to say the least. Now, the last on our list is one that I think a lot of people kind of forget and aren't really aware of, and in my opinion is one of the worst characters in the Borderlands history. And the reason being is what he did actually changed the pace and changed a lot of the general story, as well as changed the lives of a lot of the characters, whether they're side characters or main characters. What we're talking about is Shep Sanders. Now, for some of you guys who don't know Shep Sanders, he was once a foreman for the doll operation. Now, after Doll pulled out of Pandora, Shep and his family were left behind. But during the events between Borderlands 1 and 2, Sanders sold out New Haven's location to Hyperion, resulting in the town's complete total destruction, not only of its buildings, but of its inhabitants. And this was done by Handsome Jack's forces. Now, in revenge for this act, Brick gouged Shep's eyes out and cracked his skull open, leading to Brick ultimately being banished from Sanctuary for his violence. Now, in my opinion, this isn't a big story point that is really pressed upon in the Borderlands franchise. It is a little bit of a side lore. Shep Sanders is not even a main character. He does have side quests, but this little turning point in what he did and ultimately decided to do to then sell out New Haven to Hyperion is a complete terrible, to me, it's a terrible situation. And ultimately, I think this is one of the worst moments in the franchise, just in terms of like, it's just terrible what he did. It's absolutely terrible. Now, there's so many things I could put on this list. I could put Angel's backstory about being the daughter of Handsome Jack. I could put even Bloodwing's experiment and how he ultimately died. I could put all the deep lore and the sad truths that happened to Claptrap, Brick, Tiny Tina. There is so much in the Borderlands franchise and so much deep lore of its characters and its locations as well as creatures. To me, these are one of the top shocking moments in the Borderlands franchise. Let me know what you guys think is the most shocking moment in the Borderlands franchise. I appreciate every single one of you guys. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like on it, as it helps me and the channel grow, and subscribe for all things Borderlands. We are gearing up for Borderlands 4. I'm super excited, and guys, I'm back. I'm back making content, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And as always, stay happy, stay hyped, and have a beautiful day.